Hey everyone, and welcome to my Black Panther reading vlog. We are currently, at time of filming, 11 days away from Black Panther Wakanda Forever, so naturally I am going to be doing a reading vlog where I read all of the things I can get hold of to do with Black Panther. So this means I'll be reading Black Panther, the complete collection by Reginald Hudlin. This is a definitive collection, as a lot of people say, to do with Black Panther, which sort of retells his origin story, this kind of thing. So I'll be reading that along with his Shuri stuff as well, along with Shuri by Nnedi Okorafor. I will also be reading World of Wakanda by Roxane Gay. There is also as well Okoye to the People by Ibi Zoboi, as well as Shuri by Nick Stone, which are actual novels, not graphic novels, so I will probably be fitting those into this reading vlog as well. I also then have in physical format the Wakanda Files. This is a technological exploration of the Avengers and beyond, and this is sort of like Shuri's files on the technology of the Marvel Universe. So there's stuff in here about the Spidey suit, Mjolnir, the Iron Man suit, loads of other stuff as well, and it sort of looks like this. On the inside I will be doing a full review on this as I read it, and then I also have, as a priority as well, the Ta-Nehisi Coates Black Panther collection. So that is all 9 volumes, which goes from A Nation Under Our Feet into Avengers of the New World and then the Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda. So this is going to be a more sort of later series that I read. I'm going to start with Reginald Hudlin and then the Shuri things, and then I'm probably going to read this next week in the more lead up to the Wakanda Forever movie. On top of that, I've also got some Namor that I'm going to be reading as well, maybe like The First Mutant and his 2003 run, which is sort of like following him as a teenager, that kind of thing. But essentially there is a whole load of Black Panther that I'm going to be talking about today and reading throughout the next couple of weeks, and I thought I'd take you along with me like I have with every other Marvel film for the last like 18 months, 2 years now. So I'm going to start with Reginald Hudlin, and I will catch you up when I've read some of it and tell you what I think about it. So this is going to be a monster of a vlog. I apologise right now, and if you are worried about spoilers for Black Panther Wakanda Forever, I will be putting massive spoiler warnings before I talk about the movie and like timestamps, so you can just skip over that if you want to. But for now, we're 2 weeks off, so it's time to get reading. So I'm going to start with Reginald Hudlin, and I will cut them back to you when I've read something. I'm apologising right now if this looks really dark. I've got my ring light on and all the main lights on, but it's really dark outside, so hopefully this looks alright. But I've just finished the first volume and I really like this. I think this is actually a really good place to start because it sort of gives you an idea of like who the Wakandans are, their technology, the power of the Black Panther. You also get introductions to Ramonda and Shuri, as well as a bit of an idea as to how T'Challa became the Black Panther. You also get introductions to Everett Ross as well, who in this one is less of a complete and utter wimp and useless. He's a bit more intelligent in this one, which is interesting because from what I've heard of him before now, outside of the MCU, he has been a bit useless, so that's quite interesting. So you also get introductions to Claw as well, who's obviously a big Black Panther villain, and why he's like that, and also a lot of up yours to racism as well, because you get a lot of like different flashbacks right at the beginning as well to different countries who have tried to invade Wakanda and it hasn't gone well for them because the Wakandans have like obviously protected themselves with their technology and things like this, and you sort of see a bit more of that, which is very interesting, and I did quite enjoy that sort of up yours moment as well too, like people who colonize and like the religious zealots who act like Africans aren't like civilized, I guess you could say, and things like this. So I really like that sort of up yours no kind of thing as well, and it was a really good interesting first volume. I'm now going to go on to the second one, and again I will report back in a minute. I didn't actually screenshot anything to show you specifically because, well, one, I was too interested, and two, also a lot of it was dealing with like racist language and things like this, and I don't want to put that in my vlog, obviously, in terms of like even when it is sort of pointing it out and saying that this is wrong, I didn't want to put it in. And I'm now about to start the second volume, and it's called Soul Power in the House of M, or at least this first issue is, or issue 7 I should say. So I'm like, House of M you say? Because obviously I'm a big House of M fan, it's my favourite comic ever, so this will be fun. I'm very excited. I'm very, very excited. It's literally opening on Pietro, so always excited to see Pietro. Always, even when it's a Black Panther comic. Just, obviously he does tie into this and Storm and everything else, so I think this may be where they get married. Like, as in T'Challa and Storm. But we'll see. Interesting. Can't wait to read it either way. So that story was actually based within the House of M and in Wanda's reality, where Magneto's actually in charge. So that was quite interesting to see, sort of like Eric going against T'Challa, because obviously he's not happy with basically humans and mutants mixing kind of thing. He's not exactly happy with that, so that was an interesting take, to say the least. I will say that this one does use the word gypsy at one point, so that's not good, but this was written in 2005, so I don't know if that was like seen as the correct term at that time or not, I'm not sure, but be warned, it does include the word gypsy. I will stop saying it now, I just wanted to quickly warn you about that one. And now going on to issue 8, and did Ororo have to be naked? That's what I want to know. Why is Ororo naked? Do we need it? No. Why is it never the men? Why does it always have to be women? I get that this is 2005, so things were a bit different back then, but I could have done without a naked woman on the front cover of a comic book, because that's not what this is about. At all. But it's 2005 and most other covers have moved on from this, but still annoying. So volume 2 was literally just team up city between literally T'Challa, Luke Cage, Monica Rambeau, Blade, Brother Voodoo and people like this, and I really like that. I really like seeing all these characters like meeting and talking to each other, and we actually got a bit of a condensed like Luke Cage origin story as well, which was really cool as well, because while I vaguely remembered it's not like at the forefront of my mind, because it's been a very long time since I watched Luke Cage, but I really like that. I really like seeing Shang-Chi in this one as well. He was a great addition. I will say that the Asian representation was slightly more stereotypical, especially in terms of Shang-Chi's dad, who was the villain. It felt very, very stereotypical in a lot of ways, which was not exactly the greatest thing in the world. And there was a little bit of sexism in there as well, because T'Challa's mother, Queen Ramonda, has basically said he needs to find himself a wife. So he's going around looking for a wife. So there was a lot of sexualizing women in a lot of places, which was not fun. But T'Challa did remain quite sort of gentlemanly, in the sense that he's not like sleeping around or anything like this, and he's not using women. Storm has admittedly accused him of this a few times, and saying like he's got a lot of women and things like this, and calling them a harem at one point. So, and he's saying that he's living like a monk, but I'm like, not entirely sure on that one, especially considering the Dora Milaje originally weren't just the Black Panther's bodyguards. It was more like they all came together. Shut up, phone. Reminder to post my blog post, actually. Anyway, the Dora Milaje were originally created to sort of be T'Challa's bodyguards, but also for him to choose one of them to become his wife, kind of thing. So I'm glad that's been updated, and T'Challa's actually said that that feels a bit iffy to him and a bit weird. He doesn't like that, so I'm like that that's been addressed, albeit briefly. But I know that he's going to marry Storm, because obviously he's going to marry Storm, because I know this already, because they're a famous like romance couple in the comics, and I've already seen their divorce in Avengers vs X-Men, so that's the whole thing. But I really like that sort of push and pull between the two of them, and sort of like Storm saying no and him sort of slightly respecting that, I guess you could say. But he's also desperately in love with her, and she's sort of still in love with him, but he's broken her heart before now. So that's a really interesting dynamic, and I just generally really like the dynamic between like Blade, Luke Cage, Monica, people like Brother Voodoo, I should say as well, all teaming up with T'Challa, and seeing all of them interact with each other. It was all very, very interesting and really fun. I really like seeing team ups anyway, but that was a really cool thing to see, like a whole bunch of black characters teaming up together to hunt vampires, which was really good fun, especially considering I'm literally recording this on the 1st of November, which is obviously the day after Halloween, otherwise known as Halloween 2.0. Halloween lasts until I say it lasts in this house, essentially. It lasts until December 24th. Then we have 3 days of Christmas, and then I just am over it again. I don't like Christmas, I like Halloween. So Really like seeing vampires, essentially, really like that, and just generally quite enjoyed myself reading this. I won't say it's my favourite Black Panther comic so far, but we're only 2 volumes in, and I'm still really excited to see where this goes. So I've now just read this bit. This is in the 15th issue, I think it is, and I just love T'Challa going, hold on, this won't take long, while they're in the middle of a fight. I do really like exploring more of T'Challa and Storm's relationship. In the previous issue, we got more of an explanation as to what happened between the two of them, in terms of like the two of them meeting. They basically fell in love and they sort of were just hanging out and all the rest of it. Then T'Challa remembered that he was supposed to be kind of on a mission to kill his father's killer, essentially. He was sort of Inigo Montoya-ing it, as I put it, essentially, and he got distracted by Aurora, aka Storm, and then dumped her, essentially, and she's never forgiven him for that, which is a very interesting concept. I didn't realise that that was what happened. I knew that they met when they were teenagers, and then like fell in love, and then eventually got married, and T'Challa has now proposed, but she hasn't said her reply yet because they are busy getting attacked. But I find this is a really interesting relationship dynamic. I like that it's showing like the more human side of things and showing that T'Challa has made mistakes and things like this, and also the fact that Storm isn't just going to go straight back to him. I really enjoy that. I will say that there's still been a couple of sexist drawings. Specifically, the front cover of this has T'Challa fully dressed and a Storm in a bikini, and I'm like, what? Why are we doing this? I don't understand why we keep on doing this. It's very annoying, but it is 2005 when this was written. I do have to remember that this was 2005, and with that it was a bit more sexist in terms of drawing and things like this, so hopefully that's going to get better with later comics, and I'm just going to have to deal with it for now. But apart from that, I am still really enjoying this. I will say that we have now gotten a character called the Arabian Night, and I'm a bit like, little bit stereotypical here, but I do think this is all meant to be a bit sort of satirical and things like this as to how people view Africa, and how people like are constantly trying to like colonize, and how people are trying to colonize Africa and things like this. It is supposed to be a bit satirical, so I'm going to sort of take it as that, I think, but it is still quite enjoyable. I am enjoying this sort of push and pull between T'Challa and Storm, like I said, and things like this. I will say that I do wish there was maybe a little bit more action, but I am still quite enjoying this sort of look at these characters, these dynamics, and exploring more of who the Black Panther is in general, and how Wakanda works, and T'Challa's life and things like this, because usually quite often with these types of comics we do just generally just go straight into the action and stuff like this, and we sort of have to slowly learn about the character over the years, whereas this time we are sort of getting backstory and current story at the same time, which I really appreciate. I am also liking the fact that Storm has her own thoughts and feelings, and she's not just there to be the sexual object of T'Challa's desires. She does have her own like storyline and things like this, even if it is a little bit minor. I'm hoping it's going to grow like throughout the series, but I am enjoying that. I just wish I had a bit more of Shuri, essentially, and maybe a few less sexist drawings as well. As always, just a few less sexist drawings as well would be great. So we've just seen Isaiah Bradley as well be invited to the wedding, and I really like that because I knew it was coming because I've read about it in articles and things like this. But it's really nice to actually see how everyone else reacts to Isaiah Bradley. For those who don't know, he was the original Black Captain America. He was basically experimented on and forcefully created into basically a Captain America type person, but he was basically left for dead, and when he defied orders he was then put into solitary confinement for like 40 years. So he was not very well treated by the US government or anybody else for that matter. This was all during World War II for context, and he's only really known in the Marvel universe to basically the black community. So obviously with this being a high profile black wedding between two very high profile black superheroes with a lot of other black superheroes around, I think it's a really important thing to mention Isaiah, and I'm so glad he was in here, and I'm so glad that we actually saw a scene in the previous issue as well where T'Challa and Storm send an invite to him personally, and there is a couple of other scenes as well where the US government are saying this is going to cause an international incident, we can't have him out the country and things like this, and everyone's like, no, he's going. He is Isaiah Bradley, he is going. And I really like that they really sort of made a point of this and things like this, and it was so important to put him in here, and I'm so glad he was in this because he is such an important Marvel character, even if he's a relatively new Marvel character, and I'm just really glad that he was brought up in this. So this panel is brilliant. I love seeing just in the middle of the Battle of Civil War here. We're literally in the middle of the Civil War, and you've just had Storm and T'Challa and a few others, the Resistance, essentially have broken a whole load of people out of prison, essentially. Now they're fighting the Pro-Registration Act people. You've seen Civil War, you know what I'm on about. But I love this panel because it's right in the middle of the battle, and Sue and Storm are having, like, literally watching Hercules fight like a clone Thor. They're just going, oh, that looked like that hurt. Which I just think is brilliant, because that's what I would do in the middle of a battle. I would not be paying attention to whatever was happening. I wouldn't be fighting. I'd be too busy going, oh, that looked like that hurt, and getting the popcorn out. So I love that little bit of realness. I also love, like, seeing, like, Storm throughout this battling, this idea that she used to be one of the X-Men, she's now a queen, and she's trying to figure out where she fits in there, trying to adjust to being queen, and being diplomatic, and dealing with Civil War and everything else as well. She's already spoken to Reed and a few others, but it's not gone well, because obviously Reed is incredibly headstrong and things like this, but I'm really enjoying seeing that push and pull between her, especially like after the wedding and everything. Her and T'Challa are mostly on the same page about most things, so it is really nice to see more of a Roro struggle here, as well as T'Challa's struggle with trying to be like the sensible one and trying to get this war to stop, but also like trying to not be a part of it because Wakanda is outside of America and this is technically an American policy problem. I would say I would also throughout this like to see more of Everett Ross, because the government at this point are literally just using him for his knowledge of Wakanda, and he's not exactly going along with it, but he is still supplying them information. And I get why he's doing it, because he is part of the government and he's not technically like the ambassador for Wakanda or anything, and he still works for the US, but I would like to see him sort of like fighting back against some of the more like racist comments that the white senators are giving to him about Wakanda and things like this, because obviously he knows Wakanda and everything else. So I would like to have seen a little bit more of him like sort of fighting against these racist comments and things like this. I think that'd be good, but I can see why that isn't happening at the same time and what that is trying to say, but I would still like to see him sort of battle against it. So it's basically not just the black characters fighting against racism. I would like to see some of the white characters go, actually, what you're saying is wrong. That's a better camera angle. I'm going to try and stick with this one until it gets too dark and I need the ring light again. But anyway, I am continuing on with the Reginald Hudlin stuff, and we've gotten sort of maybe past Civil War and we've gone into Marvel Zombies, which I'm loving because I'm still in Halloween mode, so loving seeing some zombies and seeing more of like T'Challa and Storm teaming up with the Fantastic Four, or at least Johnny and Ben, because Reed and Sue have gone off and decided to sort of like renew their marriage vows and work on their marriage kind of thing after Civil War, because they were on two separate sides of it. That's quite interesting. So basically T'Challa and Storm have teamed up with Ben and Johnny and are now the Fantastic Four, and they've ended up fighting the zombies. And this panel just gets me, where Luke's like, I hate freaky cosmic stuff like this, and Tony says, finally something we can agree upon, where's Doctor Strange when you need him? And Luke goes, ate him. I love that joke. I love it. I will say that this is a little bit weird because I'm like, we've suddenly sort of jumped from Civil War to zombies, and I'm a bit like, I kind of wanted a bit more just based in Wakanda, but at the same time, obviously T'Challa was going to get involved in Civil War, because why wouldn't he get involved with Civil War, especially considering he's married to Storm, so that's quite interesting. But now we're into zombie mode. This run is completely weird at this point. It's sort of left turned into weirdness, but I'm quite enjoying it. And I am also quite enjoying the bits that we're getting with Shuri as well, where people are trying to encourage her to take over as like the regent of Wakanda, because T'Challa has spent too much time in America and everyone's not happy about it. So, and that's quite interesting. I know she does take over at one point because T'Challa's in a coma. I don't know if that happens in this one. I think it does though, because the spin-off focuses on Shuri as the Black Panther, so surely he's going to end up in a coma somehow. But either way, this is weird, but zombies are great. And that's what I've got. This is weird. The political side of Civil War is starting to get a little bit boring because I don't really do that much like political stuff. But the zombie side is great and very, very entertaining. As it always is, because I love the Marvel Zombies world. It's just perfect Halloween-y, creepy, spooky. It's zombies. It's zombies. I've got nothing else apart from it's zombies and I love it. I'm just having another comics are weird moment here. I'm just going to quickly show you this bit on the comic I'm currently reading because it just explains comics are weird quite well. So we've got this whole bit here where they're talking and it says, "Yes, Your Highness, apparently she is in Monica Rambeau, has been captured by a talking monkey." A what? A talking monkey. Comics are weird. I read Talking Monkey and went, yeah, that's completely normal. I saw the Talking Monkey and went, yeah, that is completely and utterly normal for comics. Comics are weird, people. They're very weird. So I've now just finished all of the Reginald Hudlin stuff, with the exception of the Shuri stuff, which I think takes place after Secret Invasion, because this actually ended as a tie-in and the start of Secret Invasion based in Wakanda, and how like T'Challa and Storm discovered that Skrulls are infiltrating Wakanda. For those who don't know, Secret Invasion is where the Skrulls, or a subset of Skrulls, mostly it's most of the Skrulls to be fair, have sent an army down to infiltrate, and they are essentially posing, because they are shapeshifters, as various different heroes essentially. And this is where it starts, and well, it doesn't actually start here, it starts somewhere else, but this is like the tie-in to that main story. So basically this series ended on a massive battle between the Wakandans and the Skrulls, and I think that was a really good place to end it, because obviously we are then tying into like Secret Invasion, and obviously Storm and T'Challa get involved there and everything else. So I think it was a good place to end this series here and then continue on with Shuri afterwards. But overall, I think this was a good series. I think it's a reasonably good place to start, at the very least. It's a reasonably good place to start with Black Panther comics if you know the Marvel Universe reasonably well by this point, because a lot of this ties into various different other storylines. So at the beginning, obviously, you get a lot of Civil War. And while you don't see the main Civil War happening, you do see what T'Challa's doing, sometimes you see what Captain America's doing, sometimes what Tony's doing, and you also see a lot of the US government and how they're dealing with this as well. So I will say it's probably a good idea to know more about the Superhero Registration Act from Civil War, as in the comic, not the film, because the film is radically different, because obviously not all of the players are involved there. So I would say that's probably a good idea. It's also probably a good idea if you read this to also know about the Skrulls, like I said, as well as the Fantastic Four, because they play a big part in this one, as well as the Marvel Zombies bit, because this has a big section as well all around Marvel Zombies, like I showed you and like I mentioned before. So if you don't know anything about Marvel Zombies either, I would recommend definitely checking that out, and also probably like reading also the Fantastic Four tie-in, where it's basically a series where T'Challa and Storm replace Reed and Sue in the Fantastic Four lineup. So that really deeply ties into this as well. So actually, on thought, this is not a good one to start with. If you are brand new to Black Panther, do not start here. I always recommend instead the Rise of the Black Panther. In fact, I actually have a whole blog post on this, which I'll leave a link to down below, with loads of starting points for Black Panther if you do want to get into Black Panther comics. I wouldn't say this is a good place to start, because it involves far too many events sort of all jumping in there, because you've got Civil War, like I said, Marvel Zombies, and then also Secret Invasion. And if you do not know anything about any of those, you will spend this entire comic bored and confused, because there's a lot going on essentially that ties into those bigger storylines. But for me personally, I quite enjoyed it. I did like seeing more of Wakanda and exploring more of T'Challa and Storm's relationship. I will say I wanted to see more of Wakanda itself and find out more about Wakanda. I would have liked to have seen a bit more in terms of just T'Challa in Wakanda. That would have been nice, and just a bit more from Shuri as well, because we didn't get that much Shuri in here. I would have liked to have seen more of Shuri, but it was a pretty fun read. I did like seeing more of like T'Challa's point of view from these various events that I have read before, and to see him live through a zombie invasion, because in the original that multiverses version of T'Challa has been slowly been eaten by Hank Pym. As in, he literally has him on ice and has kept him alive and is just eating chunks of him and keeping him to himself. So it's nice to see a T'Challa actually live through a like Marvel Zombies thing. So that was quite interesting to read, and just to see more from him and Storm. But I will say that this is probably not the best place to start, but it's still enjoyable if you know about the Marvel Universe. The artwork is pretty good as well, and I think I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. I would have rated it higher, but to be honest, it did focus a bit too much on that politics as well. Though I will say I did quite like the look at US politics and how the US government views Wakanda and things like this, because it felt very satirical. But at the same time, like I said in previous comments while reading this, there is a lot of sexist drawings and things like that in here. So probably not the best place to start, and also, like I said, could have been better in that sense as well, but it was 2005 and we have moved on from there. But now that's out of the way, tomorrow I'm going to be starting on the Shuri section of the Reginald Hudlin stuff, and then that'll probably see me out tomorrow. Then it's the weekend, and then I'll be starting on everything else, including the Ta-Nehisi Coats section. I'm going to sort of review what I've got over the weekend, figure out what I'm going to read, that kind of thing, and I'll update you then. But I will update you obviously tomorrow as well when I've read some Shuri. Right now, I'm going to get some blog posts written because I've got 3 left to go and then I am done for blog posts. So I've now just finished the first volume in the Shuri series, which is like the spin-off kind of thing, or at least the follow-on from the Black Panther series I was reading yesterday, and this one was quite fun. I did quite like exploring more of like Shuri in this one and seeing more of like how she thinks about being the Black Panther, and how she thinks like, or she's more like jealous of T'Challa being the Black Panther and thinks because she's always wanted it, and seeing how like she dealt with like the Panther trials and things like this. I found all of that really interesting. I also quite liked this idea of having T'Challa completely and utterly out of the action for most of it, while also still sort of exploring more of his and Storm's relationship as well. I really liked actually having Shuri and Storm having their own sort of storylines in this, even though they were still connected to T'Challa. It felt a lot more realistic to have them have their own storylines, and also to just sort of just see more of these characters, to be honest, and see like T'Challa not as like the main character of the story. I will say there's still a few bits where it's sort of like skin tight outfits and women wearing totally inappropriate outfits to be fighting in and things like this, but this was 2009. Apparently things haven't gotten better by then, and let's be honest here, things still haven't gotten quite that good either, even now, in terms of like women's costumes and things like this. And if you're wondering why that suddenly went dark, I'm literally using my laptop screen as a light at the moment, so apologies for that going dark for a second there, and if that happens again at any point throughout the rest of this video. But overall, that was a good start to it. I'm going to be continuing on with this series and hopefully finishing it today, because I've actually only got one more volume left in that series, and then I'm done with the Reginald Hudlin stuff. Then I think I'm going to read some Namor, just because I think I need to get some Namor, otherwise I'm just going to not forget about Namor, but I'm just going to focus a lot on T'Challa and Shuri, and probably Riri as well. So I figured probably time to get some Namor done as well, depending on how much time I've got today. But overall, good start to the Shuri based stuff. Quite enjoyed it. Definitely excited to see where the second volume goes. Now that T'Challa's awake again, I'm excited to see how the two of them are gonna like deal with both of them being the Black Panther at the same time, that kind of thing. So yeah, pretty excited, and a pretty good start to this sort of second half separate series thing. It's a good start, essentially. It's a good start, and I do like the idea of Shuri as the Black Panther. I think she gives something new to the idea of the Black Panther, and I'm excited to explore that more. Okay, did not expect to see Obama turn up in this. Like, we've already seen like Malcolm X as well as Martin Luther King Jr. in like this comic, or at least like a version of them. But to see Obama as well when he's actually president in this comic, I really like how Marvel do this occasionally and actually bring in real world people and real world like events and things like this that either inspire the comics or just have these people turn up. I think that's really cool, and also to just see Obama's like really fun. So now I'm just wondering how Wakanda would have dealt with like Trump as a character, like they've done with Obama, because I think that'd be really funny, because there was a lot of criticism of that in the Sam Wilson Captain America run. There was a lot of like clearly like mocking Trump and satirizing him in that series, as well as the President Loki run. But I'd love to see like Wakanda deal with that as well, because I think there'd be a great one to see what they'd do with that. So I'm now on to the second volume of this Namor comic, and he's just gone to hell, essentially, and for weird mystical reasons. And this I find is a very interesting shot, because that's a real picture that they've then drawn the characters on top of, and this is supposed to be one of the hellscapes, and I'm like, that looks weird. It's cool, but it looks really weird, because obviously it's an actual photo on top of, well, underneath drawings, and to me that looks odd. Like, it's a really cool effect, especially when you're talking about hell, but I don't know, it just looks weird to me. And to be honest, I'm not really sort of vibing with this. I've got to say it's reasonable, but I don't think Namor is going to be a character that I'm going to read that often. Obviously this may change when I've seen the movie and I've got that sort of connection to him after seeing the movie, but at the moment his comics aren't really doing it for me. So I'm going to finish this run, because I've only got like 2.5 issues left, I think it is, and then I think I'm going to start on probably A Nation Under Our Feet, because that's my biggest series and I really want to get that done before the film comes out in 2.5 days. So that I think is my plan. So I'm now on to the Ta-Nehisi Coates collection. This is the second volume that I've just finished, and that is The Crew. And this one, this entire series is basically following T'Challa after there's been a huge sort of battle against the Black Order, and it's basically after Secret Wars. I forgot the name for a second then, but Secret Wars, which is like basically worlds colliding, multiversal incursions, all of that good stuff, and he's now dealing with the fact that the Wakandans are not happy with the Wakandan royal family or how anything is working. There are riots and coups trying to take place. Shuri is currently in a living death kind of thing, and T'Challa's trying to deal with all of this while also remaining king, and also battling the fact that he wants to stay king but also be the Black Panther and stuff like this, and he's sort of torn between all of these different things, all the rest of it. And this is a really good series. And I mean, first of all, I've just got to talk about the artwork in here. It's absolutely stunning to look at. I am loving all of the artwork in here. It is so pretty, and I'm just loving that in general. I'm also really liking seeing like the other half of this, which is also following the Midnight Angels, which is Io and Anika from the World of Wakanda comic. That actually ties into this, so it's interesting to see their point of view in this and things like this, and seeing T'Challa trying to hold on to power while also trying to bring back his sister, all the rest of it. I'm really actually loving seeing Shuri in this one as well, because we get her in like the ancestral plane type place as well, like where T'Challa goes in the films. So that's very interesting to see that point of view as well, and seeing like the more spiritual side of Wakanda, all the rest of it. This is really good fun so far. Really strong first 2 volumes. I've got 7 more. Very excited to continue, but I just had to quickly jump in and say that now. And this is definitely more fun than Namor, because Namor was interesting but I wouldn't call it fun, whereas this is fun if slightly political, which is obvious because we're dealing with coups and all the rest of it. But I'm not usually here for like highly political things, and I think I've read a lot of like political Black Panther stuff, but I am actually really enjoying this. I do get a little bit lost in the politics of it on occasion, and I don't quite understand all of it, but I am having a good time and definitely enjoying this. I wouldn't say this is a good place to start for anybody who wants to jump into Black Panther comics, unless you have also like read Secret Wars and things like this, but it's still a really good run, and I am currently really glad that I have bought all of it, because it means I can just run straight through it all in the next couple of days. I'm now on volume 5 of the Black Panther series by ta-Nehisi Coates, so this is a really interesting one because obviously we're dealing with like the Wakandan Revolution, the fallout from that. Ulysses Claw is turning up, there's like the gods have gone missing, all the rest of it. There's a lot going on in this one and I am quite enjoying it. I will say that the political side of things is still a bit confusing to me, but I find that with basically every political fantasy sci-fi type thing, anything with like a mainstream like politics storyline in it does confuse me quite often because it just gets a bit complicated for me personally, and I do think maybe this cast of characters is slightly too big because I am getting slightly lost as to who everybody is. But in saying that, I am loving the fact that Storm is back in this one. She's a great character. She's also remaining clothed compared to previous like runs that I've read where she's just running around naked while fighting for no apparent reason, so it was nice to see her remain clothed this time and a lot more updated in terms of obviously sexism and things like this, and exploring more in general of T'Challa and Storm's relationship as well. I would say I would like to know a bit more about Shuri's new powers, because Shuri's got new powers in this one, and I knew they were coming because I'd obviously like researched a lot on Shuri for the blog and everything else, but that was quite interesting. I will say though that, like I said, I would have liked a bit more explanation there, but in general the artwork in here is absolutely stunning. Yeah, like I'm loving like the colour palette and how it's all drawn. I think all of it is absolutely gorgeous. There's just like a few couple of things I would have liked a bit more of like explanation to, but this is the final part of Avengers of the New World, but that now means I've only got 4 comics left. This is the Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda section, so I've gone through Nation Under Our Feet and also Avengers of the New World, so we'll see if this lot has any more explanation that I want, that kind of thing. But either way, I'm very excited to finish this run because I am loving this. So I've now also read part 1 of the Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda, and this really moved things forward. This has gone from dealing with like Claw and the like coup and everything else to a far-flung future where Wakanda has literally got a galaxy essentially, or several galaxies under their control, and they've got like multiple like a caste system kind of thing, and we're following one guy who didn't have a name and had his memories wiped, who worked in the mines and has now joined the resistance group alongside someone called Nakia and another one called M'Baku, and they've named him T'Challa. And I'm just like, is this T'Challa? What's going on? Is this going to turn out to be some sort of weird twist at the end that it turns out to be the one who was controlling everybody and causing them to riot and everything else? Is she now inside all of their heads and doing something that way? I don't know. Interesting. But also the artwork in here is absolutely stunning. I love the artwork in here, and I now kind of want Ta-Nehisi Coates to write a novel with this storyline as well, because I'm only one in and I absolutely love it. I think this is brilliant. Or just anybody to do a sort of storyline like this, because I'm really, really intrigued by this. I read this one and I immediately sort of sat up and went, oh, hello, this is really fun. So I'm going to try and blast through the final 3, because I have suddenly realised that I'm seeing Black Panther tomorrow and I have got no time whatsoever apart from today to read as much as possible, and that means I need to read 3 more comics to finish off the Ta-Nehisi Coates collection. I'm not getting to World of Wakanda, I'm not getting to Shuri, and I'm definitely not getting to Ironheart. But I mean, I haven't done too badly. I could have done better, but I mean, I've still read some epic Black Panther stuff, so I am quite happy. So yeah, on to part 2, which is volume 7 out of 9. So let's get going, and I'll comment again when I've got something interesting to say. So I've now just finished the Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda, and I have now also watched Black Panther Wakanda Forever. So what I'm going to do is talk immediately about the comics, and then I'm going to talk about the movie completely spoiler free. But if you do want to completely skip all of that, I will have a timestamp as well for anybody, like I said, to completely skip over my thoughts on the movie if they want to go in with absolutely no expectations whatsoever. But anyway, the Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda was probably my favourite part of this entire Ta-Nehisi Coates series, because this goes far-flung into the future, or at least looks like it, and it's sort of like a wibbly-wobbly timey-wimey thing, and my camera battery is now running out of charge. Great. Give me 2 seconds. I'm back. So anyway, this is following an idea of basically Wakanda now has an empire which spans 5 galaxies. They are run by essentially Killmonger, and basically a whole lot of people are enslaved and things like this. They have no memories of who they are, and it takes T'Challa getting his name back and joining the revolution to discover that it's actually a little bit different to what we're seeing. And I really, really liked this bit of it. I really like they explored more of like Bast, who is like the goddess of Wakanda, things like this, and the gods in general, the Orisha and things like this. I really like that we also saw a bit more of T'Challa and Storm's relationship actually throughout this series, and sort of seeing them sort of slowly get back together again. I found that quite fun because obviously they broke up years ago in the comics, so it was nice to see them start to reconcile a little bit. And generally this was more about like freeing Wakanda, the like empire of Wakanda, and saving the earth-based Wakanda as well. And what I loved first about all of this was the artwork. Again, it was absolutely brilliant. So you've got like scenes like this. It does change artist or art style a little bit in this final one, so it looks a little bit more like this, but I think it still looked absolutely gorgeous. I love like all the character explorations and like this idea that Shuri is basically tired of T'Challa constantly going off and saving other places that are not Wakanda, or like Earth Wakanda essentially, and exploring the fact that he doesn't really want to be king and he wants to sort of like be the Black Panther, and he's struggling with being king and things like this. Those conversations were great. I really like the battle scenes in this one, and seeing like obviously all of the other heroes coming along as well to help out, and seeing them all team up together. That was all really great fun, and I think this would also be a really good thing to sort of adapt into a movie. It would be amazing as a movie. Obviously it just have to be with Shuri, but I still think it would be amazing. I would also love to see this as like an actual novel as well, because then I think we could really go into like details of how this happened and things like this, because I will say that the origin of this was a little bit confusingly written. I don't know if that's just because it has been a very, very long week for me and I was reading it half asleep, but I do think having this as like a sort of novel would also be really cool to see, so we can really get into like all of the nitty gritty and the details and everything else, and like exploring all of these different like galaxies that have been conquered, all the different players involved, things like this. I think that'd be amazing, but hey, we've got it in graphic novel form, which was also amazing. So I think I'm going to give this section of it 4 stars. Overall, I think the Ta-Nehisi Coates collection probably a 3.5 to 4 stars, because at points I was slightly confused, but generally I really, really enjoyed it, from the art style to the general storyline. It was all really good fun. I wouldn't say that this is a good one for new people to start with, because it does focus a lot on what's previously happened with Wakanda, with like Storm and T'Challa's relationship, which is a very, very long ongoing thing that's been happening for years now, actually since the Reginald Hudlin stuff that I mentioned earlier on in this vlog, which was the first stuff I read. So I wouldn't say it's good for like new people, in the sense that you do have to have a lot of background knowledge on these characters, what they've been through. Specifically, this one is kicking off from a previous event, Secret Wars, so you'd have to know about that as well. I personally haven't read that, but I do know a lot about it because I've been doing a lot of research for it, and I've sort of heard about it and stuff, and I am saving it for when the movie comes out, so that's why I haven't read it yet, but I have a base understanding of it, which is why I could read this reasonably easily. So if you are a fan of Black Panther already and you have read a few of the comics, I'd say that this is a really good one to read. It is a really good time, but maybe not for new people. I apologise if that last bit was blurry. It looked a little blurry on the viewfinder, but we now seem to be HD again, so apologies if that last bit was blurry. But anyway, on to what I thought about Black Panther Wakanda Forever as a movie. Obviously, timestamp here, so you can just skip this bit if you do not want to know a thing about Wakanda Forever. So I will give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 discussions now inbound, and if you're still here, if you hear anything that you didn't want to hear, it's now your own fault, but I'm hopefully going to say spoiler free. But anyway, I loved this movie. I saw it twice yesterday. Time of filming was opening night. I'm hopefully actually uploading this on the 12th of November, which is the day after the film comes out, so fingers crossed that happens. I've got to edit this vlog. I've done bits of it, but not all of it, obviously, because I'm still filming it. But anyway, I did really, really enjoy this movie. I loved how it explored like the grief of losing T'Challa, but also Chadwick. that was done beautifully, like how different people grieve and how like grief affects us all. It was absolutely beautifully done that way. I loved everybody getting their own like little bit of a storyline as well, and finding out more about like a few other of the Dora Milaje and seeing more of M'Baku, things like this. Everyone as well deserves an Oscar for this movie. I think especially Letitia Wright. She was incredible in this movie, but everybody was. Everybody deserves an Oscar, from like the writers, the directors, the actors, the set designers, the costume designers, everybody. It was all absolutely brilliantly done. I think like it didn't feel rushed at all either, considering this film had to be rewritten in light of Chadwick passing, so I think that was done really well. The ending had me speechless as I cried because it was done beautifully. Like the opening section as well hit me in the feelings. Everything to do with Namor was brilliant as well. I love Namor as a character. I definitely, like I thought would happen, I enjoy him a lot more in the movies as I do in the comics. I think he works better when he's like bouncing off other characters, so I'll have to see how I feel in terms of him teaming up with other characters and seeing him like in tandem with other heroes or villains, as it may be at points, to see if I truly like him in comics. But I definitely like him in the movie. He was a really fun, cool character in there. Riri Williams was done to perfection in this movie. I adored her in this. I thought it was a brilliant introduction to her as a character, and I thought Dominique Thorne did an absolutely brilliant job playing Riri. She was fantastic, and I cannot wait for her movie to come now. I cannot wait for the TV show that we're getting around the Dora Milaje as well, because Io and Aneka were amazing characters. Personally, I think I'll always prefer the first Black Panther movie, but I think that's just because Chadwick was such an amazing actor. He held it all together brilliantly. But I do think this new movie was done brilliantly, and while it will take a while to get used to not having Chadwick about, I still think it's an absolutely brilliant movie, and I cannot wait to see where Wakanda goes in the future, because this one was done so well. I cannot wait to see where all of these characters are gonna go next. I cannot wait to see more of Namor and Talokan as well, and things like this. It was just genuinely absolutely brilliant, and definitely like such a good movie. Definitely recommend seeing it on the big screen, because there's a lot of epic battles and epic visuals and things like this that you have to see on the big screen. I loved it. Definitely loved it. It made me cry like I thought it would, but it was done beautifully, and it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And that's all I can really say without giving spoilers, and that is actually all of the comics I'm going to be reading, because I ironically now have three actually Black Panther books I want to read, but I'm not going to be vlogging these. I'm just going to be reading these, and I'll add them into my wrap up at the end of the month. But with that, I am now going to leave this video here so I can actually get on and read those books. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Comment down below, tell me what you spoiler-free thought of Black Panther, or if you don't have that much time, leave me a panther or purple emoji down below to let me know that you were here. I'll also leave a link as well down below to all my social media if you want to check it out, including to the comic book sanctum, which is absolutely filled with everything to do with Black Panther, all spoiler free though, so if you want to check that out, I'll leave links to that down below. I'll also leave a link as well down below to my Etsy and Redbubble store, which sells bookish merch if you're interested in that. And if you want to see any more of my videos, please click subscribe here, and over here will be the link to my previous video. But until next time everyone, bye!